LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two. Now listen. I'm going to stick my neck out here and say that nobody ever said, I want to be a legal word processor when I grow up. I'm sorry, but I've known a lot of them, and it just never happened like that. Nobody ever said, hey, I'm going to study really hard, get my word processing undergrad degree, minoring in liquid paper, then maybe my master's in redlining, and if I can swing it, go for my doctorate in spell checking. No. It's just one of those jobs that I like to call fall into jobs. And it's odd because it's actually a good paying, good benefit job. Another one of those fall into jobs is working in a box office. Nobody goes to school to learn how to sell tickets and balance your cash drawer and ward off pesky paper cuts, but it can be a great gig. And like word processing, because it's a fall into job, it tends to attract a diverse group. Usually creative types, which can be a pain sometimes, like a really dysfunctional family, but it is hardly ever uninteresting. Bill fell into a box office gig during some lean actor years, and it was a great union job with medical benefits and a pension. Bill worked with this old guy named Al, who had his own Hollywood memorabilia business on the side and was just over everything. Al was working the box office window one day, and this woman comes up looking for tickets. Al said he only had seats in row P, and the woman haughtily said, I'm not sitting in P. Well, Al, being the cranky queen he was, immediately shot back, my dear, I have friends who love to sit in P. And everybody in the box office could barely contain their snickering. When I first moved to LA, I didn't even know a word processing job existed. I hit the ground temping to pay my bills, but those were regular office jobs. Answering the phone, making copies, typing in user data for Disney television. And I soon learned that by showing up on time and doing a reasonable job, I'd almost always be offered a full-time position. Not that I was that brilliant. I guess there were that many flakes in town. And I learned not to tell people I was an aspiring actor, which is what I was really aspiring to. I was just that entertaining guy with the good hair who showed up on time. My 3-month temp gig at Disney was ending, and somebody said to call their friend Marty, who was looking to beef up her word processing staff at a big downtown law firm. I was looking for my next gig, and I had temped for a couple of lawyers. Sort of. So I called Marty, and she had me in. She was this very attractive, trim middle-aged woman with an Oklahoma twang like nobody's business.
Well, Tony, I don't see on your resume that you've worked for any other lawyers.
Marty, I just did a temp gig for some lawyers, and the office manager was your friend who referred me.
Well, Tony, I'll give you a try. It's the swing shift, 5 to 2 a.m., 4 nights a week, $25 an hour.
Are you kidding? $25 an hour in 1987 was really good money, especially for a job I never even knew existed in the first place. And coming in at 5 p.m. meant that my days were free to pursue acting gigs and auditions. Perfect. So, hell yes, I took it. My first night, I had a document in which the attorney had written in brackets, emphasis added after several paragraphs. Emphasis means to bold, so I bolded everything on that page. Done. That was easy. Next day, Marty called me into her office.
Well, Tony, you obviously haven't worked for lawyers because you're supposed to write the words emphasis added. You don't bold an entire page.
Sorry, Marty. I didn't have that come up at the other law firm I worked at. But hey, I showed up for work on time.
Well, Tony, fair enough. I'd like you to run all your work by the proofreader for the next month and we'll see how it goes.
And that's what I did. And I stuck with that gig for 9.5 years. I've told a few tales from that swing shift word processing gig, or WP as they call it in the trade. And in thinking about telling a few more, I realized that it was basically like a TV sitcom that ran for 9.5 years. In it, I was the Midwest, newly arrived in town, Mary Tyler Moore of my series, and the people I worked with were this cast of zany characters who were mostly hilarious and sometimes maddening. Let's face it, everybody had fallen into that job, and most everybody had their irons in other fires, whether it was acting, writing, directing, network marketing, you name it. We all had other plans, but a job we had to show up and do. So here's a little TV guide synopsis for Swing Shift WP, starring, well, me. The pilot episodes opens on Tony, a 24-year-old aspiring actor fresh from the University of Minnesota, joining the swing shift of a large word processing department in Los Angeles. The supporting cast includes Marty, his Oklahoma manager with a secret, Dawn, the night coordinator who is a Silver Lake S&M queen with a heart of gold, but whose character dies of AIDS after the first season. Dawn is replaced by Sarah, a vivacious redhead who has worked with Marty years before and calls everybody girlfriend. Sarah claims to be engaged to a muscular man named Jules. However, in one episode, Tony follows her to a clandestine dinner break and Sarah is outed when he discovers that Jules is really Julie, an addict who is more off than on the wagon and who sometimes disappears for days at a time. Other characters are Gracie, an Argentinian girl who keeps having babies with her Peruvian husband until he hits midlife, grows a ponytail, gets a motorcycle, and leaves her with the kids. In spite of it all, Gracie's a lot of fun, laid back, and when telling Tony another kid is on the way, she simply says, "Oh, Tony." Tony bonds with Larry, another actor who has arrived from New York with his wife. In season 5, Larry and his wife have a baby, and during the Northridge earthquake, the baby's crib slams against the second-floor wall of their apartment that had come loose from the building. There's a Jamaican woman who aspires to be a motivational speaker, and when attorneys walk in on her sleeping at her desk, she says, "I was not sleeping, I was just resting my eyes." The two main antagonists are a bitter middle-aged divorced woman who hoards Tupperware and is always complaining about the rest of the gang having a good time. The other one is a mean German woman who has it in for the swing shift and is basically a poster child for the Hitler Youth. A couple of guest characters are an anorexic night secretary with huge Farrah Fawcett hair. She grows her own marijuana plants to make cannabis tea at work and moonlights as a telephone psychic on the side. She only lasts a couple of seasons because she sleeps with one of the married attorneys, then starts stalking him, putting things in his mailbox and slitting his tires. It happens. Another guest star arc is a 6'2" mulatto woman named Donna with a horrible Ogilvy home perm who spends her weekends gambling in Vegas. "When I'm 215, 220, I'm getting a little chunky, but when I'm 200, I put on my leather miniskirt and I'm looking fine." Donna ticks off one of the head partners, a cranky woman with a terrible skin condition who overhears Donna say, "I told that skag-faced huss that you will not disrespect me, okay?" Bye-bye, Donna. And those are only a few of the wacky characters over those 9.5 years. Now, I have a history of trying to have a good time wherever I'm at. Why not? When I was a kid at Olmsted Elementary School, my friend Tony and I would organize playing the Poseidon Adventure disaster movie with kids at recess. We'd all yell, "Tidal wave!" and everybody would hang upside down on the monkey bars, screaming at the top of our lungs. It annoyed Mrs. Schnurr, the recess lady. She also didn't like us climbing up on the bleachers and blew her whistle and yelled at us to come down from them. Tony stood at the top and announced, "I'm Cinderella," before running down the flight of bleachers as if the clock had struck midnight. It was an even bigger nightmare for Mrs. Schnurr when it rained during recess because we were stuck inside. Tony and I set up this area called Kiddie Corner where we'd entertain everybody with Carol Burnett sketches or we'd just make up comedy. One of our biggest laughs was a cartoon balloon that said gas, and we'd hold it up to our rear ends. The kids were in stitches, but Mrs. Schnurr blew her whistle and broke it up. The point is, I try to have a good time when I'm stuck somewhere, and the swing shift WP was no different than Olmsted Elementary. Of course, the backdrop of LA during those years provided even more drama than the interpersonal drama going on. In Season 2 of Swing Shift WP, the gang watches the 62-story First Interstate Tower directly across the street catch fire and burn for 4 hours with people trapped inside. In Season 4, the gang is at work and the LA riots break out all over town. When the rioting finally reaches their block, somebody calls Marty, who is in the DC office, to see if everybody can go home and escape downtown. Marty says,
"Well, you people would do anything to get out of work."
In Season 6, the gang experiences large aftershocks from the Northridge earthquake and later that year watches out the 18th floor as OJ gets chased all over LA before his capture. Through it all, they make the best of it. They have beer and pizza nights on Thursdays. Tony and Larry work on their comedy spec scripts and put together mailings to agents and casting directors. They put on the Pet Shop Boys song Saturday Night Forever, which gets everybody up and dancing and Gracie twirling in a circle, a la Stevie Nicks. Later in season 8, Marty calls Tony and Larry into her office.
Well, Tony and Larry, there's too much fooling around at night.
Marty, we're getting the work done.
Well, yes, but the lawyers said they hear too much laughing. This ain't no comedy store. This ain't no disco either. And if you people don't like it here, you can just get 86'd.
Well, guess who got 86'd first? Marty. After 15 years, they gave her walking papers, and they brought in this hideous little round woman to wrangle the department. By then, Larry took his family and got out of earthquake land. I was now with one of the top commercial agents in town and working a lot, and didn't need the swing shift WP anymore. Midway through season 9, while recovering from a nasty case of mono, Tony goes in to get his Christmas bonus check in person, tells the hideous round woman he won't be coming back. So long, farewell, the series is over. That fell into swing shift gig ended up being a bridge between two different periods of my life, and it gave me several things. It gave me time to finish up my University of Minnesota degree. I was short 20 credits when I left, but thanks to prodding from Bill, I did finish it, and now my Bachelor of Arts diploma proudly hangs in my recording studio, which is my closet. I was able to pay off my student loans with that gig, and it started me saving in a 401k that 32 years later, I'm glad I did. But most of all, it gave me money to not be desperate for the show business work, so that I ended up getting show business work because I didn't need it in the first place. It's always easier to get a job, any job, show business or otherwise, when you don't need it or you already have one. But one of the best things was the fun we had getting through those 9.5 seasons. We were naughty sometimes, yes, but we did the work, and I got several lifelong friends out of it. And yes, Marty, God love you, sometimes it was a comedy store, and oftentimes it was a disco. And we had a blast. LOL take two. LOL take two. LOL take two. Ba 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 bum.